You know the feeling. Your React app starts fast, but the moment users scroll down a long list, your frame rate tanks. That 1 second lag isn't just a small annoyance. Research from a Chrome Dev Summit says that it can actually increase your bounce rate by as much as 32%. And the fix isn't even a massive refactor. It's just being smarter with how you load things that are just off screen. Stick with me and I'll show you how to turn that stuttering slow list into a buttery smooth feed without rewriting your app. Most infinite scroll tutorials out there actually have a trap. Every item that you fetch stays in your DOM. If a user scrolls through 1,000 products, your browser is secretly juggling all 1,000 of those invisible divs. And that is why your frame rate tanks and your memory spikes. The professional solution is a two-part combo. First, we'll fetch data in small chunks. And second, we'll use virtualization to our advantage, to only render things that you can actually see. This can cut down your initial data load time, keep your DOM clean, and maintain a perfect 60 frames per second. To get smaller data chunks, we're going to use TanStack Query. It is a game changer for caching and fetching. First, what we'll do is we'll go in and create ourselves a custom hook. But before we do that, we're going to create a helper method to fetch our food page. This is an API service method we're going to write here in a moment. And then here is our custom hook. Inside of here, we're going to use the useInfiniteQuery method from TanStack. And the key is this getNextPage param, which tells the hook how to fetch the next page. For instance, we can use the last item's ID as our cursor. Let's give this a save, and let's go over to our API service method so we can create this fetch food page. This does the same thing as our fetch food items. It just has some optional page parameters that we can pass it. And you can see we're still calling our generate food data, which is what we were doing up here. Give this guy a save. And back in our component, the hook will actually give us everything we need. So let's go ahead and rewrite this a little bit. First, we can get rid of our old load foods method. We can also get rid of our use effect here. That's going to render these guys up here a little useless because we're going to get that from our hook. And let's go ahead and import our hook. We can do that just right here. Use foods is the hook that we created. So let's give that an import. And this hook returns us a bunch of things, mainly the data, if there's an error, is loading, and these others. We need to tell our UI what foods is now that it's not managed in state. For that, we're going to use useMemo. That looks like this. And if we want to keep measuring our metrics like we were before, we can add in a use effect where its sole purpose is to just measure the rendering time. And let's give that a save. And if we go back to our UI, we should see what it looks like. Give that a refresh. Loading delicious foods. And you can see we still have all of our data. Amazing. Back over in VS Code, we can see our component. The hook that we imported here gives us everything that we need. Our fetch next page function, a has next page flag, and our data organized into pages. Next up is virtualization. This is what keeps the browser from melting down. For this, we're going to use React Window. It's a tiny library that renders components that are only visible on the screen. All we have to do is to swap out our food list here for the fixed size list component from React Window. We only need to tell it the item count and the item size, which is the height of each row. What I've done is created a fixed list component here that has the count and the height, and then inside of it, we're rendering the different food cards. So back over here, we can swap this guy out for, instead of food list, we're going to do fixed list. Go ahead and give that an import. And I should fix that. There we go. And save. And now if we go back over to our UI, and if we expand our elements here, we can see there's only a few that are rendered. As we scroll, React Window uses the existing DOM nodes and just swaps the content inside. It's like a Rolodex, so you only ever see the few cards on the screen at once. Now let's try to connect the infinite query to our virtualized list. This is the game changer. Let's go back over to VS Code. We're going to use the onItemsRendered prop from React window to know where the user has scrolled. When they get near the end of the loaded data, we're going to call the fetch next page function that we have from our hook. To do this, we'll wrap the call in a start transition and tell React to fetch the data without blocking the UI. We're going to need to import our useTransitionHook. There we go. And then we're going to create a function to load more items that calls this fetch next page function. And then down here on our fixed list, we can pass it as a prop. We just have to be sure to add it to the corresponding list on the other side. All right. Now, if we go back over to our UI, we should see that the new items load in seamlessly once we reach the bottom of the data set. Our scroll position over here remains stable, and the scroll bar size accurately reflects the size of the entire data set, even though only a fraction of it is rendered. If this combo is already blowing your mind, do me a favor, hit the like button. It really helps the algorithm, and it helps my videos reach more people that could use this type of content. All the code is linked in the description. I am planning a follow-up on prefetching the data for previous pages for scrolling both ways, so make sure to subscribe and ring that bell. Slow lists are not a React problem. It's a strategy problem. If you fetch everything, you kill the network. If you render everything, you choke the browser. By combining smart, chunked data fetching with virtualization, you get tiny network requests, a light DOM, and an app that just feels fast. And you can even wrap this pattern in a custom hook. Every time you need to render content in a very long list, just drop it in, get perfect, buttery smooth performance. That's it for this one. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'll see you in the next one.